The late afternoon sun bled red across the plains as the westbound train thundered along its tracks, wheels clattering like distant gunfire. Inside the second passenger car, Elias Hart, a rugged cowboy with dust on his boots and trouble on his trail, leaned back in his seat, hat tipped low. He wasn't on this train by chance. He was chasing a rumor, a whisper, that the notorious Black Viper gang planned to rob the 5:15 train headed toward Dust Creek. He'd tangled with them before. He knew how they operated, and he knew innocent folks would be caught in the middle. Across the aisle sat Marianne Caldwell, a traveling woman with sharp eyes and a quiet confidence. She clutched a leather-bound sketchbook to her chest, the pages full of landscapes she'd drawn along her journey west. She'd spent weeks wandering, searching for something she couldn't quite define. Maybe adventure, maybe a fresh start, maybe both. Elias glanced her way once, not long enough to be rude, but long enough to sense she didn't belong on a train bound for trouble. The whistle screamed. Then came the gunshots. Passengers ducked as the train jolted violently. Outside, horses thundered alongside the cars, and masked riders shouted orders. Elias cursed under his breath. "It's them." Before Marianne could react, the door at the end of the car exploded inward. A bandit stepped inside, shotgun raised. Panic erupted. Elias sprang from his seat, grabbed Marianne's wrist, and whispered urgently, "Come with me, if you want to stay alive." She didn't hesitate. Something in his voice, steady, unshaken, cut through the chaos. He led her down the aisle, pushing past terrified passengers until they reached the rear of the car. Another shot rang out. Elias yanked open the door, connecting to the freight car, and the roar of the wind swallowed their gasps as they slipped inside. The freight car was dim, smelling of wood and iron. Crates towered around them, providing just enough cover. Elias closed the door quietly, then braced it with a loose board. Marianne pressed a trembling hand to her chest. "Are they going to search this car?" "Probably," Elias said, "but we'll deal with that when it comes." They crouched together behind a stack of crates. The space was tight, forcing them close. Their breathing mingled with the grinding metal of the train. Marianne's fingers brushed his as she steadied herself, and he felt the jolt of the contact harder than any gunshot. "Why are they doing this?" she whispered. "Money, power, because no one's stopped them yet." He glanced at her, his eyes softer now. "Name's Elias." "Marianne." Gunshots cracked again, closer this time. Elias leaned forward, listening. "They'll be here any minute." Fear flickered in her eyes. So did something else. Trust, the kind that forms in the tight spaces between danger and hope. She swallowed hard. "Then, I suppose we hide together." He allowed himself a small smile. "You stick with me, Marianne, and I'll get us through this." Outside, boots pounded toward the freight car. Inside, two strangers held their breath as fate pushed them closer together. The freight car rocked gently as the train barreled forward, every vibration magnifying the tension between Elias and Marianne. Dust drifted from the rafters with each rattle of the wheels, and somewhere beyond the thin metal wall, the shouts of bandits echoed closer. Marianne clutched her sketchbook tighter. Elias noticed the way her fingers shook, though her eyes held steady. She wasn't a fragile woman, just one thrown into a storm she hadn't expected. "Stay low," he whispered, "and stay quiet." She nodded. Bootsteps thudded along the top of the freight car, followed by the muffled clank of someone dropping down near the door. Elias stiffened. He peeked between two crates, muscles coiling with readiness. The metal latch jiggled. Marianne's breath hitched. Elias held up a hand, signaling her to stay still. The latch lifted halfway before stopping. A gruff voice outside growled, "Ain't nothin' worth talkin' in the freight. Move on." The footsteps faded, but not far. They were lingering, waiting, watching. Elias exhaled slowly. "They're suspicious," he whispered. Marianne leaned closer, her shoulder brushing his. "What do we do if they come in?" "Fight, if we have no choice, but I'd rather avoid that." He gave her a reassuring look. "I'll handle it." She stared at him, studying the lines of his face. "Why risk yourself for a stranger?" For a moment, the question hung heavier than any danger outside. "Because I've seen what the Vipers do," he replied, voice low. And I won't let them hurt anyone else, not while I'm still breathing. Her eyes softened. Thank you, Elias. He offered a small nod, but before either could speak again, the door of the freight car screeched. Someone was prying it open. Elias grabbed Marianne's hand and pulled her deeper into the maze of crates. The sound of metal grinding against metal tore through the quiet, followed by the creak of hinges. A masked bandit stepped into the freight car. Elias pressed a finger to his lips, urging Marianne to stay silent as they crouched behind a wooden crate marked ranch supplies. The bandit's boots echoed with hollow taps as he walked slowly between the stacks. Marianne's hand slipped into Elias's without thinking. Her pulse raced through her fingertips, and he tightened his grip, grounding her. The bandit paused, head turning slightly. Elias went still. The man leaned over a crate, peering into its shadowy edges. For a breathless moment, Elias felt sure the man could hear Marianne's pounding heart or his own. A shout came from outside. Hey, we found the safe car. Leave the freight. The bandit muttered something vulgar and stomped toward the door. The hinges groaned again as it slammed shut. Silence returned. Marianne sagged against a crate, exhaling shakily. I thought he saw us. So did I, Elias admitted. But luck's still on our side. She looked at him with a shaky smile. I'm glad you're with me. Elias felt heat rise in his chest, not from fear, but from something far more dangerous. I'm glad you're with me too. Outside, another gunshot sounded. The danger wasn't over, but neither was the bond forming between them. The gunfire outside grew louder, sharper, echoing through the metal shell of the freight car. Elias strained to listen, every muscle tight as a drawn bow. The Black Viper gang wasn't wasting time. They were after the vault car, and once they cracked it open, they'd sweep the rest of the train for witnesses or leverage. Marianne hugged her sketchbook to her chest, her wide eyes fixed on Elias. What happens now? We don't wait for them to find us, he said. We need to move. Her voice quivered. Move where? They're everywhere. He glanced toward the small sliding window at the far end of the freight car. It rattled with each turn of the tracks, barely big enough for a person to slip through. But it was their only exit without walking straight into danger. Elias crawled to it and peeked out. The wind whipped his face as he scanned the plains. The train was speeding along a stretch of open land, dotted with scrub brush and patches of hard-packed dirt. Not the safest place to jump, but survivable. He turned back to her. We can climb out and drop onto the soft side of the embankment. It'll hurt, but it'll keep us alive. Marianne blinked, fear and determination warring in her expression. And if we stay, they'll find us. And the Vipers don't leave witnesses. She swallowed hard. Then we jump. Elias admired her courage. Many would have frozen. Marianne didn't. She chose survival, chose to trust him. He braced the window and shoved it open, letting in a blast of cold wind. I'll go first. Then I'll help you down. Before he could climb through, the freight car door slammed open again. A bandit stomped inside, tall, broad-shouldered, with a bandana covering his face. His pistol gleamed in the dim light. Well, look what we got here. Elias shoved Marianne behind him, instinctively. Run, he whispered, but she didn't move. The bandit cocked his revolver. Both of you step into the open. Elias's mind raced. He couldn't reach for his gun fast enough. He needed a distraction. Something. Anything. Marianne moved first. She stepped out from behind him, her voice trembling but steady enough to draw attention. Please, we're just passengers. We didn't see anything. The bandit smirked beneath his mask. That's the problem, sweetheart. You're seeing a whole lot right now. Elias seized the moment. As the man's eyes focused on Marianne, Elias lunged, grabbing the nearest crate and heaving it forward. It slammed into the bandit's knees, knocking him off balance. Marianne, go. She scrambled toward the window as Elias wrestled with the gunman, fists slamming into ribs and jaw. The bandit swung back, clipping Elias hard across the cheek, but Elias held firm. Marianne poked her head out the window. Elias, hurry. With a final burst of strength, Elias slammed the man into a crate and knocked the revolver free. He didn't wait for the bandit to recover. He grabbed Marianne's waist and pushed her through the window. "Jump!" he shouted. She tumbled out, screaming as she vanished from sight. Elias followed without hesitation. The wind roared, the ground rushed up, and their fate hung in the space between the train and the earth. The world spun in a riot of dust and sky as Elias hit the embankment and rolled down the slope. Pain shot through his shoulder, then his ribs, then his back. But he forced himself to stay loosed, to roll with the fall instead of fighting it. The ground eventually slowed him, skidding him to a halt on a patch of brittle grass. He groaned and pushed himself up on one elbow. Marianne. A few feet away, Marianne lay sprawled on her side, breathing hard but conscious. Her hat had flown off, her hair wild from the fall, but she was alive. Elias crawled toward her, heart pounding harder than the heist itself. "You hurt?" he asked, brushing dirt from her cheek. She winced, just winded, and sore everywhere. He let out a shaky laugh. "Means we landed right." She managed a faint smile. "If that was right, I don't want to know what wrong feels like." The train thundered farther down the tracks, shrinking into the horizon. Elias watched it go, jaw tightening. "The Vipers will realize we're gone soon." Marianne pushed herself up, brushing off her skirt. "Then we shouldn't stay here." He nodded. "There's a small ridge eastward. Should give us cover." They began walking, both limping slightly. The open plains stretched endlessly around them, gold grass, scattered mesquite trees, and the faint scent of dust rising with every step. The sun hung lower now, painting long shadows across the ground. Marianne glanced at him. "Did you know they'd target that train?" "Had a hunch," Elias replied. "I've been tracking them. They don't usually hit in broad daylight, but they've been getting bolder. And you planned to stop them, alone." A ghost of a smirk touched his lips. "Didn't plan on being alone." She blushed slightly and looked away. "Well, I'm glad you weren't." Silence fell, not awkward, but thoughtful. They walked closer now, their shoulders almost brushing, despite the wide-open land around them. Elias noticed the way she steadied herself when the ground grew uneven. She noticed the way he favored one arm, his muscles stiff from the fall. By the time they reached the ridge, both were breathless. Elias guided her into the shadow of a large rock outcrop, offering a moment of cool relief from the sun. Marianne sat down carefully. "What now?" "We rest," Elias said. "But only for a bit." He scanned the horizon, wary. "The Vipers won't let two witnesses vanish without looking." Marianne hugged her knees. "Elias, that bandit back there, he would have killed us." "Yeah," he answered quietly. "That's why I couldn't let him." She looked at him, not just at the rugged lines of his face or the grit smeared across his cheek, but at something deeper, something steady, something brave. "Thank you," she whispered. His throat tightened. He sat beside her, their knees touching lightly. "I'm just glad you're safe." A warm breeze passed between them, and for a moment, the chaos of the train, the danger of the plains, all fell away. But then Elias's gaze sharpened. In the distance, a thin trail of dust rose into the air. Riders. Marianne followed his stare, breath catching. "Are they coming for us?" Elias stood, already scanning for an escape route. "Yes, and we need to move now." Elias grabbed Marianne's hand and pulled her into motion as the dust trail grew thicker in the distance. Whoever the riders were, scouts or bandits from the Black Viper gang, they were heading straight toward the ridge. The plains offered little cover, but Elias knew these lands better than most. He scanned the horizon until his gaze locked on a formation of jagged rocks a few hundred yards away. "There," he said. "There's a narrow cut between those boulders. Might hide us long enough for them to pass." Marianne didn't argue. She tightened her grip on his hand, matching his pace even though her legs trembled from the fall. The rising wind whipped dust into their faces as they ran, and the ground sloped downward toward the cluster of rocks. They slipped between two boulders, just as the riders crested the ridge behind them. "Down," Elias whispered, pulling her into the shadowed crevice. The space was small, forcing them close, so close that Marianne could feel Elias's breath warm her cheek. The riders' voices echoed faintly. Tracks head this way. They couldn't have gotten far. Elias pressed a finger to his lips, urging Marianne to stay absolutely still. They crouched low, hidden behind a slab of stone. Marianne felt her heartbeat hammering against her ribs, but Elias's steady presence beside her made the fear bearable. Boots thudded against rocks somewhere above them. A rider dismounted. Gravel skittered down the slope. Marianne froze, barely daring to breathe. Elias leaned in, his shoulder brushing hers, his voice a whisper no louder than the wind. "They won't find us. Not here." She looked up at him, her eyes wide in the dim light. "How can you be so calm?" "Because you're with me," he replied, without hesitation. "And I won't let anything happen to you." Her breath caught not from fear this time, but something deeper. The footsteps lingered, then moved away. After several tense minutes, the sound of hooves faded in the distance. Elias waited a moment longer before easing forward to peer through a gap in the rocks. "They're gone," he murmured. "For now." Marianne sagged back against the stone, exhaling shakily. "I didn't realize danger could come this close." "Out here," Elias said, settling beside her. "Danger's always close. But so's the chance to survive it." She smiled faintly. "You make it sound simple." "Not simple," he corrected softly. "Just worth the fight." The wind quieted, replaced by the slow rhythm of their breaths. The narrow space felt strangely safe, like a pocket of calm stolen from chaos. As her nerves settled, Marianne reached for her sketchbook, clutching it protectively. Elias noticed. "You kept that safe through all this." She nodded. "It's the one thing I can't lose." He looked at her with a gentler expression than she'd seen yet. "Then I'll help you keep it." Their eyes held, and something unspoken warmed the air between them. Something tender, fragile, but undeniable. But the moment didn't last. Elias tensed suddenly. "We need to move. Those riders were scouts. The rest of the gang won't be far behind." Marianne stood quickly. "Where do we go?" Elias scanned the land ahead. "There's an abandoned line shack, about a mile from here. If we can reach it before nightfall, we might have a chance to regroup." Marianne nodded, determination replacing fear. "Lead the way." Elias took her hand again, and together they slipped out of the rocky shelter, running toward whatever hope or danger waited them. By the time Elias and Marianne reached the old line shack, the sun had melted into the horizon, bathing the plains in shades of gold and violet. The shack stood crooked on weathered beams, its wooden planks gray with age, but it offered shelter, 4 walls and a roof, which was more than they had. Elias pushed the door open with a cautious hand. The hinges groaned, but the inside was empty, save for a broken chair, a stone hearth, and a pile of dried wood someone had abandoned long ago. "It'll do," Elias murmured. Marianne leaned against the doorframe, breathless but smiling. "It's practically a palace after the day we've had." He chuckled softly. "You've got spirit, Marianne Caldwell." She stepped inside, brushing dust from her skirt. "I think today forced me to grow some." Elias built a small fire in the hearth, sparks crackling to life. Warmth spread through the room, mixing with the faint scent of pine. Marianne sat across from him, sketchbook resting in her lap. "You saved my life more times than I can count today," she said quietly. Elias shook his head. "You saved mine too. That distraction in the freight car. I don't think I could have taken that bandit down without it." She smiled gently. "Then I guess we're even." They fell into a comfortable silence as the firelight danced across the walls. Outside, coyotes howled faintly in the distance. The night felt close, danger still on the horizon, but for the first time since the robbery began, safety felt within reach. Marianne opened her sketchbook. "Do you mind if I draw?" "Not at all." Her pencil moved across the page with steady strokes. Elias watched her, mesmerized, not just by her talent, but by her calm in the aftermath of chaos. She was resilient, stronger than she believed. After a few minutes, she turned the sketch toward him. It was of the freight car, the shadows, the crates, their hands inches apart. A moment carved into her memory. Elias's breath hitched. "That's incredible." Marianne's voice softened. "It was the moment I stopped being afraid." He met her gaze. "Because you trusted me." She nodded. Yes. A warmth spread through him deeper than the fire. He scooted closer, the wooden floor creaking softly under his weight. "Marianne, I didn't expect today to go like this. Hell, I didn't expect to meet anyone like you at all." She looked down, cheeks flushed. "I feel the same." The fire crackled, sending sparks upward as Elias gently reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Her fingers curled around his, fitting perfectly. "Once we get to town," he said, voice low and honest, "I'll see you safe. But I'd like more than that, if you'll have it." Marianne's eyes glowed in the firelight. "Elias, after what we've been through, I want to stay by your side. Wherever that road leads." He leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to turn away. She didn't. Their lips met in a soft, steady kiss, a promise, fragile yet fierce, forged in danger and sealed in firelight. When they parted, she rested her forehead against his. Outside, the wind swept across the plains, carrying away the last traces of the Black Viper gang. Inside the shack, two souls, who met by chance, found something far rarer than safety. They found each other. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Western stories.